Hi, my name is Steve Klein. I'm the Chief Data Officer for Gardner Intelligence, and I'm here to talk to you again this week about results from our latest survey on COVID-19 and its impact on manufacturers. And just as a reminder, the survey asked two basic questions. One, what changes have manufacturers experienced? And then what adjustments have they made? And then we also asked them the impact of those changes and the impact of those adjustments and how severe the impacts are. So first, let's look at the changes experienced by manufacturers in the latest week, the week of April the 6th. Previously, we had seen that ripple effects were the number one change experienced, those being effects on the business that people can't directly tie to COVID-19, but are likely due to that. And we see that there was very little change in the experience of ripple effects this week, this last week in manufacturing. But we noticed that the number one change experienced was standing orders that have been postponed or canceled, with just over 50% of manufacturers having experienced that. Now, last week was the first time we asked this, so we don't have any comparison with that to tell whether it's been up or down from previous weeks. We also asked for the first time business practices, and we can see that about 37% of manufacturers have had a change in business practice, meaning a change in payment terms or asked to work without purchase orders. And so we see that two of the biggest changes manufacturers are experiencing are just related to business, whether it's orders coming in or the business practices that they are using to get those orders. We also saw some significant change in the percent of manufacturers that are dealing with changes to the supplier lead times and supplier accessibility. And then now we're starting to see even more of experience of change in materials availability and parts availability. So those are becoming to affect manufacturers more and more in the last couple of weeks. Now let's look at the impact of these changes that manufacturers are experiencing. And we see that ripple effects have become more severe, that the darker orange line there is the major impact. And more manufacturers, significantly more manufacturers, are reporting that ripple effects are having a major impact on their business. We also see down at the bottom there, material availability and part availability are also beginning to have a more significant impact, a more severe impact on manufacturers. The other changes that people have experienced are relatively staying the same. So now let's look at the adjustments that manufacturers are making. Well, one of the things that we see for most of these adjustments is that fewer manufacturers are making these adjustments than they were in the previous week. Note that the green dot, which is the week of April 6th, is to the left of the gray dot, the week of March 30th in many of these cases. So even though manufacturers are experiencing, or more manufacturers are experiencing different changes to their business, relatively fewer manufacturers are making adjustments in response to those changes. So while we saw a significant reduction in manufacturers adjusting their travel, in their trade show participation and contingency and backup plans in hiring and recruiting, many of the other adjustments stayed the same in the week of April the 6th. So let's look at the impact of these adjustments. Well, for the most part, the impacts have been relatively stable when it comes to the adjustments that manufacturers are making to their business. One that does stand out noticeably is hiring and recruiting, which has become significantly more severe in its impact on manufacturers. We did see that travel and budgets and spending are also having a somewhat more severe impact on manufacturers, but not a significant difference overall. So in general, manufacturers, the impacts of their adjustments are staying relatively the same. So again, what we're seeing is manufacturers experiencing more change, a fair amount of that change having a more severe impact on their business, but manufacturers making adjustments at sort of the same pace or even slightly less than they had compared to normal in previous weeks, and the impact of those adjustments staying relatively the same in their severity. Now, last week we also started asking about facility hours, and we see that a slightly higher percentage of facilities are open for their normal hours. That came from a slightly lower percentage being open reduced hours. And then when it comes to staffing, we also saw a slightly higher percentage of manufacturers at their normal staffing level. Now, both of these results could be that we have different manufacturers responding to the survey every week. So perhaps that difference is being driven by different responders to the survey. It could also be that areas of the country that are experiencing relatively small effects from COVID-19 and coming in under the models and the trends that people were forecasting, it could be that manufacturers in those areas are opening up a little bit or doing a little more activity. And it also could be that those manufacturers are the ones that are serving the medical industry, because for the second week in a row, we saw that companies that had been serving the medical industry but had increased the service to that industry increased noticeably again for the second week in a row. 2 weeks ago, we were at 5% of respondents increasing their service of the medical industry. 2 weeks or last week at 10%, and then in this most recent survey, 15%. And we did see a very small increase in manufacturers that are serving the medical industry for the first time. So that's the quick summary of the results from our COVID-19 survey from the week of April the 6th. You can see more detail and more charts at gardnerintelligence.com in the blog post that was put up today, Monday, April 12th. Also, you can find lots more information on manufacturing and what is going on with the data in manufacturing at our blog as well. Thank you.